Previously, I was asked to rank every single tournament that happened in 2024, but I'm going to be honest, I don't remember half of them because I'm just a normal person and not a human tennis database. So, instead of talking about every single tournament this year, I'll rank all of the big tournaments from worst to best. To clarify, the big tournaments are Masters, Grand Slams, and this year also the Olympics. And to clarify even more, this is my personal opinion and I'm prefacing it because the worst big tournament this year in my opinion was the Miami Masters. Why? It's because I didn't watch it, because at that time I genuinely started disliking tennis and I understood that I need to take a break from it all. To add to that, I really hate the back-to-back Masters tournaments because it devalues both of the tournaments. It makes them feel less important, especially since I decided to play the tournament in Miami in the NFL stadium. So I'm sorry for putting Miami last if the tournament was actually really fun, but I just didn't watch it, so it is what it is. Now, moving on to the tournaments that I actually watched, the worst big tournament of 2024 was the ATP Finals, and it's really unfortunate because technically speaking, this is the tournament where the best play the best, but a lot of things went wrong for the year-end tournament this year. Djokovic decided against playing in Turin, Alcaraz got sick, and the biggest problem of them all, Sinner was just too damn dominant, which from the entertainment standpoint was really bad, and it resulted into a boring tournament that had one solid match throughout, which was Zverev versus Fritz. Ruud's unexpected advancement to the semis was kinda fun, but other than that the tournament was pretty mid to say the least, and whilst I was making this list I was reassured of one thing: if you want to call a tournament great, then the final should be great, and that just wasn't the case for Turin, so year-end finals deservedly go at the bottom of the list. Maybe I was too harsh by putting ATP Finals last because Rome Masters were stinky. Name one match that happened in Rome this year. You probably couldn't, and for a good reason. The tournament lacked star power from the get-go. Novak was eliminated by Alejandro Tabilo in the round of 32, which in itself is a fun result, but when you take into account the fact that Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz were already absent from the tournament, you just had to know that something questionable is about to happen. And it did. I mean, the final was Alexander Zverev versus Nicolas Jarry. Like, that's simply not fun, so I have no choice but to put Rome Masters 13th on the list. Similar thing happened in Montreal this year, and listen, I'm all for upsets, but your last four being Andrei Rublev, Matteo Arnaldi, Alexei Popyrin and Sebastian Korda just doesn't scream entertainment, to be honest. The only reason why this tournament is above the Rome Masters is because at least it had fun, unexpected winner who probably reached the peak of his career when everybody was on a downward spiral. Cause if Rublev had won the final against Popyrin, Montreal would have been probably at the very bottom of the list. Am I crazy for thinking that Indian Wells was just not good? Yes, we had our fun with the Sinner Alcaraz match and the B invasion, which was something that I have never seen before, but other than that the tournament was lacking in thrilling matches. I guess Luka Nardi beating Novak Djokovic was unexpected, but that's all. Even the before mentioned Sinner Alcaraz match went in a pretty straightforward way. The final was average as well, so I just can't put this tournament high on the list. Shanghai Masters are in a weird spot for me because the matches like Machac, Alcaraz, Djokovic, Fritz, Zverev, Griekspoor were entertaining, but I don't know, there was always that sense of inevitability that Sinner will play Djokovic in the finals and Sinner will beat him there, and it's exactly what happened. The positives from this tournament were Mahac's incredible level against both Sinner and Alcaraz. The juicy F-bounce by Tiafoe were fun as well, but I fear that it's not enough for me to put this tournament any higher on the ranking. Next up are the Madrid Masters. Now we are at least getting into the territory of a decent tournament. There were specific matches that I actually remember for them being really fun, like Carlos Alcaraz versus Jan-Lennard Struff. Andrei Rublev was in two great matches against Alcaraz in the quarterfinals and Auger Aliassime in the finals. And in general, Andrei's story of how he won the title was one of the most memorable ones this year, and also I cannot ignore the fun that Rafa brought to Madrid. Yes, he obviously wasn't at his best, but that Rafa Nadal Pedro Kacin match was very eventful, and it is still stuck in my head till this day for the fact that Kacin asked for Nadal's shirt after the match, which in my opinion was cool. The ceremony for Nadal was great as well, and in general there was at least one engaging match happening every day of the tournament, and that is why Madrid Masters are in the 9th spot on the list. I have a feeling that people will disagree with me, but I liked Paris Masters. As per the tradition, the Paris Masters was the time for those who have been lurking in the shadows the whole year to get that great result to end the season off on a high note, and it definitely was the case for Hugo Humbert, who went to the finals to the delight of the home crowd, who in a good way are absolute crackheads, and their craziness enhances the atmosphere so much, I just cannot fathom seeing sports fans disliking such environment. To add to that, I just simply enjoy when upsets like Hugo's win against Alcaraz happen. Admittedly, the final was bad, but I enjoyed the lead up to it, so Paris Masters deserves to be here on this list. If I was making this list with no objective thought in my mind, then this tournament would be at the top of it, but I can understand that a lot of people would not consider the Cincinnati Masters as one of the best tourneys this year. But selfishly, this was the only tournament where both of my favorite players, Holger Rune and Frances Tiafoe, actually played well at the same time. And to be fair, the semi-final match where they played against each other was really fun and it delivered even to a casual fan. Sinner Zverev semi-final was great as well, and in general all 4 semi-finals were involved in entertaining matches throughout the tournament, so I don't even feel like I'm overrating the Cincy Masters too much by putting them at the 7th spot in the ranking. Now we are moving on to the big dogs, and the least entertaining Grand Slam by a slight margin was the US Open. Again, if I was more biased, I would have ranked this tournament higher simply because of Tiafoe going to the semis where he suffered a heartbreaking defeat against Taylor Fritz. But objectively speaking, even though there were great matches and upset wins, at the same time the final was uneventful and really predictable. The match that was looking like the best match of the tourney between Dimitrov and Tiafoe got derailed by an unfortunate injury for Grigor. And again, as I said before, Sinner ruined the fun by being too dominant. With that being said, I still enjoyed the final major of the season, but still, it couldn't crack the top 5. Tournament that I always look forward to, Wimbledon starts off the top 5. Selfishly, I really enjoyed the campaign that Frances Tiafoe produced. It started off with a 0-2 comeback against a great player in the form of Matteo Arnaldi. After that, he easily beat Borna Coric, which was followed by him delivering on the center court against the eventual champion Carlos Alcaraz. Also, the emergence of Giovanni Pecci Pericard was cool. Taylor Fritz reminded the world that he is Zverev's father, and in the final I enjoyed the dominance by Alcaraz against Djokovic. All in all, it was a very solid tournament that delivered engaging encounters all 2 weeks. Following, the most prestigious major tournament there is the best Masters tournament this year, the Monte Carlo Masters. I just love how chaotic this tournament is, whether it's the missed line call in favor of Sinner against Rune that was swiftly followed up by similar mistake that impacted Jannik's match against Tsitsipas, or the fact that Stefanos apparently becomes the greatest player ever when he steps on the courts of Monte Carlo. I love the fact that you can never know what will happen in Monte Carlo, which is why this tournament is so high on the list. The Olympics are starting off the top 3, and honestly that tournament is hard carried by the final. Yes, it was entertaining before that, but the final was the best tennis match that happened this year, and the culmination of it was so special that even I, as someone who rooted for Alcaraz to win it all, felt like this was just destiny getting fulfilled by Novak Djokovic. The explanation for the high placement of Olympics might seem too simple, but I just feel like it's the right one. So the best big tournament this year is decided between the French Open and the Australian Open, and I just feel like the Australian Open had more going on than the French Open, which is why the Australian Open is the best big tournament in 2024. The final of the French Open was insane, I get that, but the lead up to it was lacking a bit in comparison to the Australian Open. I mean, it's the first Grand Slam of the year. Players are eager to remind everyone of how great they are. They want to show the world the improvements that they made in the off-season, and simply put, they're just more capable of showing great tennis at the start of the season as their gas tanks are full. And the guys delivered. Rublev, Fritz and Zverev barely averted disaster at the start of their campaigns. Even though he lost in the second round match against Hurkacz, Mancic showed the world that he should be considered as one of the best rising stars on the tour. Nuno Borges pulled off the most unexpected run at the Australian Open. Zverev definitively beat Alcaraz in the quarters, which was followed by the Medvedev-Zverev match that presented us with the roller coaster of emotions that fans watch tennis for. And to finish it off, we saw a 0-2 comeback in the final. I mean, what more can you ask for in a big tournament? Let me know what you think about my list in the comments. There are definitely some things that I forgot about, so remind me of them in the comments as well. With that being said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take it easy, my friend.